Hello guys and welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be going through the brand new patch notes. And in these patch notes there are a lot of Guardian changes that include bug fixes and complete reworks. So this is going to be a pretty long video. I may include timestamps. The first timestamp will probably be the Guardian bug fixes, and then I will do individual timestamps for the individual Guardian changes. Alright, so they fixed an issue where critical damage was dealing roughly 7% less than intended. Okay, so that's interesting. So ranged are already improved. Fixed the visual issue for ranged where milestone attribute icons for tier 6, tier 12 and tier 15 were displaying health and focus. Alright, so that's just a visual bug. Nothing wrong with that. The actual focus and attack attributes were being correctly applied. That's great. So ranged automatically look like they've got a buff. Alright, so they will be doing more critical damage, which is very interesting. Now on to Ariel. So fixed an issue where Ariel was gaining an attack buff for each damaging debuff that was cleansed by her special ability instead of a cleansing all damaging debuff. Okay. So fixed an issue where Ariel was gaining an attack buff for each damaging debuff that was cleansed by her special ability instead of cleansing all damaging debuffs and gaining only one attack buff. Alright, wait, let me read that again. Did she get nerfed or buffed? Alright, so fix an issue where Ariel was gaining an attack buff for each debuff that was being cleansed by her special ability instead of cleansing. Okay, so she looks like she has got a bit nerfed. So she will be now gaining one attack buff, which was probably what they meant. Well, that'll be interesting. Maybe that will hurt her, but to be fair, she's still going to be hitting, doing some great damage. Now with Baloo, fixed an issue where the heal from Baloo's core ability was granting 1% HP instead of 2% HP. That might have just been a what's called a visual, not a visual bug. It was probably said 2% of the game and was accidentally applying the 1%. So that's not his rework. So fixed an issue where advanced field chip was where extra defense from the talent wasn't being applied. Okay, until they left the defense aura. Oh, that's interesting. Fixed an issue where Gaston's core ability where he wasn't getting. Oh, I didn't notice that, but yeah, that's gonna be interesting. So Gaston's gonna be better than what he was the previous thing. Yeah, that is pretty interesting. So now Hades, he's got a lot of edits here. So fix an issue. So let's scroll up for a bit. So fix an issue where advanced talent spite was purging 2 buffs instead of 1. Yeah, that's a bit of a downer. Fix an issue where advanced talent cruelty where Hades wasn't gaining focus buffs. Yeah, that is very important with range, so glad they fixed that. When an enemy would gain armor from an armor per second effect, such as Baymax's armor field. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, fix an issue where Hades would gain a focus buff from talent cruelty if an armor blocked. Oh, he had a lot of issues. Clarify description for the advanced talent Fury to indicate that the 100% additional damage per burn will be dealt to all enemies based on the number of burns. Yeah, that isn't ideal. Fix an issue where, so this is for Maui, fix an issue where the elite talent fighting the winged beast was triggering armor before the defense buff was applied, which was resulting in lower armor gain. Okay, so it looks like he wasn't gaining as much armor as he was supposed to, and looks like it'll be fixed. And then fix an issue where defense buffs granted to Maui by his advanced talent gracious gifts were being removed from him before the armor could be applied. Okay, so it looks like Maui has been fixed by gaining a little bit more armor. That's nice. Now with Merida, there's a lot of Guardian fixes, yeah. Alright, Scrooge should be the last one, but now we're on to Merida. Fix an issue where Merida with focus buff was increasing critical chance of a special ability. I haven't really used Merida for a long time, but that would be a big massive no. So fix an issue where the advanced talent Wrathful Spirit, where it was increasing critical damage on basic attacks as well as a special ability. Yeah. Fix an issue on the advanced talent Highlander arrows where it was increasing critical damage on specials as well as basic critical hits. Yeah, I haven't really used this, so I don't know if that's going to change much, but we'll see. But now into Mike. Fix an issue where Mike was also granting armor based on his own defense instead of the defense of his allies. That's a slight buff, because usually when you're against your allies, they've got a lot more higher defense, especially when you're punching up. So that's a very big positive. And now we're on to Scar. So adjusted description and behavior of deep cuts. It now grants an additional 2.5 to 5% damage per second instead of the 10% wound. Okay. The potency of this talent remains untouched as both are technically okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So basically, it's gonna do the same amount of damage. It just was a bit confusing for other players, so they dumbed it down just a little. Alright, you can see the Guardian balance updates for Baloo. I can't wait to read that, but let's just go through Scrooge quickly. Fixed an issue with the advanced talent Healthy Prophet where Scrooge wasn't able to cleanse attack debuffs if he was focus buff locked. Alright, that's yeah, I've been using Scrooge, so that's gonna be a nice addition. Alright, oh, there's a lot of Guardian balance updates, yeah, with a lot of info. So let's start to go through Baloo. Alright, so his core ability, when spending cargo charges, allies no longer need to be near Baloo. Oh, this is amazing. To gain buffs. It was very annoying because then you had to manually control Baloo to make sure that your allies were closer, or you'd have to move each of your allies closer to gain those buffs. That's definitely already an improvement. This also applies to Baloo's special ability. Again, another improvement. Core ability, reduce heavy attack timer to 1. Alright, so yeah, so that's decreased. 1 second is a bit annoying, but I guess because he's a tank, yeah, it's going to be a bit better because, yeah, that is another improvement. So far, pretty good. Removed max stacks and defense buffs. It was pretty okay. So it's unlimited now. So previously it was maxed out at 3, so now I think it could go on for probably 99 maybe. We'll have to see. Maybe they've changed something else. So signature ability, while holding a heavy attack, Baloo gains a 10 to 50% damage resist buff. Okay, so yeah, so he's going to be tanking a lot more damage. Previously, yeah, before it was a 90% defense buff, but now it's a damage resist buff. That's interesting. I wonder how that works and why it's 10 to 50%. Alright, in addition, 70% chance to ignore stun and knockback while holding a heavy attack. So this is very similar to Mr. Incredibles. I think Mr. Incredibles is a 100% chance though, but to ignore stun, that is very interesting. I don't think Mr. Incredible can ignore stun, he can only ignore knockback. And now, Baloo's talent, well, what you know, changed to increase, maximum cargo charges by 2. So it was previously 7, now it was previously 5, now it's 7, which is going to be a bit helpful. And whenever Baloo spends a cargo charge, he has a 5% chance to gain a 5 to 20% attack buff for 10 seconds. Alright, so previously, his old talent behavior of gaining 10% defense buffs when destroying chromosomes has been removed. Yeah, there isn't really any chromosomes around like in your day-to-day content, so I'm glad they took that away, otherwise it was just a waste of time. But the talent Mango Fandango, healing has been increased from 1% to 3%, so that's tripled. I wonder how noticeable that difference would be. And the AI Baloo holds heavy attack for a short amount of time before releasing to reduce the chance of him getting knocked out. Okay, yeah, that is brilliant, because if you didn't know about heavy counters, if the opponent uses their heavy, your Baloo will just get knocked out. And so basically when Baloo uses his heavy attack, he literally gets no benefit because he'll just get knocked down, and then he'll take so much more damage because the enemy will be attacking him while he's on the floor. Alright, so if trigger special on auto fight is on, AI Baloo is less likely to use his special when he has 0 cargo charges. That is a very interesting change. So now, alright, so they're improving the AI specifically for Baloo. That is very nice, because obviously you don't really get any benefit if you're not using his special without any cargo charges. And the chance to use his special increases for each cargo charge he is holding. So if he's got all 7, there's a very high likelihood that he's going to use his special. And AI Baloo is less likely to use his heavy attack unless he has 5 or more cargo charges. So AI Baloo doesn't waste cargo. That is a brilliant change, especially because mostly you don't want to be controlling your tanks, like some cases like Mr. Incredible, who does an insane amount of damage. You want to always be controlling him, like not always, but there is a very great benefit. But Baloo, you don't really want to be controlling him, but now they've improved their AI. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to test him when the update is finally out. Oh, now Baymax. Alright, so let's put Baymax to the top. The talent advanced field chip now grants an additional 2.5%, so that is now 5% defense instead of making the 25 defense buff from Baymax's core ability 10%. Oh wait, instead of making the 25% defense buff from Baymax's core ability 10% stronger, which was only 2.5% defense at max talent level. Okay, so they've basically made Baymax more tanky. That is interesting. I did notice that when you were using Baymax, he did have some instances where he would be taking a lot more damage than a tank should be taking. So that is a very good change. And now Genie, I'm looking forward to this one. So focus increased, that's pretty good. Power level, health and defense increased slightly. All good changes so far. Now let's see his kit. Whenever Genie gains an indestructible buff in this way, he gains 25% armor. Okay, does that mean he gains... Wait, whenever Genie gains an indestructible buff in this way. Alright, so there must be more on this later. So he gains armor, that is amazing. He definitely needed that. So special ability, okay, so he gains 10% armor from his special ability, and when he does become indestructible, he also gains another 25%. I wonder if there's a way to increase the potency on that 10%. It does seem pretty low, but I guess with the... Let's see how prevalent you become indestructible, and that how often you proc that 25% armor. Alright, so Genie's special ability now delivers knockback to all damaged enemies. That's interesting. So if you use this special off the bat when no enemies are damaged, does that mean that they aren't knocked back? Yeah, that does sound like an interesting interaction, but I don't know if that's actually what they mean. Again, we just need to test them. I might do individual videos for each of these champions, guardians rather. I might do a before and after for the big changes. For example, I'm not really going to do a video of Baymax, but I might do a video for Genie. Alright, so where were we? We're on his signature ability. Wait, was it? Did I read that? No, I didn't read his signature. Okay, he's got three signature abilities. Alright, so change the attack 100% attack buff that triggers while indestructible from Genie's core abilities. Alright, instead of... Okay, so his attack buff has been doubled. No, wait. Okay, so it's been halved actually, but it can stack up to 3 times. But it lasts the entire encounter, so you will be gaining more attack, but we'll see how easy it is to be indestructible without taking too much damage. So Genie's core ability now grants an additional 25% armor. Alright, so he's gaining a lot more armor now this time. And Genie's special ability now grants an additional 2.5% to 5% armor. Alright, so all those signature ability changes are just to make it more tanky and add a little bit more damage. So now his talent disarming personality now grants an additional 20 to 30% instead of making that 25% defense. From Genie's special 30% stronger. Okay, so now... Alright, so it's to 30% stronger. Oh, so the max is now 30%. Previously it was 7.5%, which is a pretty big change. And now what are these about the talents? So talent which one now triggers whenever Genie's core ability activates instead of activating only at 75% HP. Okay, so it now seems like they've completely removed the HP based indestructibles, and it only matters when Genie's core ability is active. So does that mean that Genie can only go indestructible 3 times in a fight, or is it now unlimited? Because if it's unlimited, that means he's a lot better, and he's definitely going to be going up in the tier list. And let's just read his core ability again. So whenever Genie gains an indestructible buff, he gains 25% armor. Yeah, we're probably going to need to test that and see how much times he can be indestructible. I don't think it really shows in this text apart from me missing something, but no. Let's just move on to Hades. Alright, so Hades. Power level, attack and focus slightly increase. All great changes. Power level, I do think that's just a number. But yeah, that's just probably them balancing it out. Attack, focus, great changes for a ranged guardian. Focus, again, very important for them. Now his core ability, heavy attack, now has a 50% chance to inflict a burn. Well, I don't know how potent that burn will be, but again, that's extra damage that he didn't have before. So his special ability now purges indestructible buffs from all targets hit by his attack. Alright, so Hades looks like he's going to be a Genie counter. So if you're against a very, very strong Genie, you might want to level up your Hades. But I'm not sure. There is a Genie, what's called a Genie boss in the dungeons. But I don't really think it's worth leveling up Hades just to counter that one single boss that may not even appear. But maybe in the future where you need to target specific bosses. I do remember that in chapter 410 there is a Genie, which can be a bit problematic, especially because if he's indestructible you can't do damage, and that opens you up to having more time for the enemies to attack you and you can't do damage to him. So this might be a good play for 410 in the story mode. Right, so his damage is also increased from 200% to 400%, which is again bonus damage. And special ability bonus damage if the target is inflicted with a burn increased for okay. So now he's doing a lot more damage. And alright, so it looks like you're only going to want to use Hades' special ability when there's a burn, and to get a burn you'd obviously need to use those heavy attacks. So pretty similar to Gaston, but Gaston does have that 100% chance to inflict a bleed. Hopefully they haven't changed that, they might below, but yeah. So it seems like he's going to have a very similar playstyle to Gaston, but you're going to need to use those heavy attacks a lot more often because of that 50% chance, unless they increase that chance from a talent or something. We'll have to see. So now his signature ability explode damage is increased from 100% to 200% and 100% to 400%. So just he's getting a stat increase by the looks of it, as well as that utility of being able to purge indestructible buffs, which I think on the top of my head he is the only person in the game, unless someone below also has that currently purges indestructible buffs. Alright, so enemies defeated from Hades' explosion can also now explode. That's interesting. It sounds very similar to the Mickey buff that you get in the middle of encounters, where after you defeat an enemy they explode and knock down enemies around them, which can be good. Yeah, but we'll have to see how that works out. So now we're on Ian. I think he's the first support on this list. So talent, Battle Magic 101 now grants an additional 2 to 5%. Okay, so before we begin, the one issue with Ian so far is that he doesn't really scale up to other healers in the end game, especially because his heal. So hopefully they have changed his heals, but by the glance of it, it doesn't look like it's been mentioned. But let's read it anyways. So his talent Battle Magic 101 now grants an additional 2 to 5% attack, instead of making the 5% attack buffs from Ian's special 20% stronger, which was only a 1% attack. So yeah, that was pretty minimal, to be fair. So now his attack buffs are going to be a lot stronger, and the defense buffs look exactly the same, but just with defense. But I guess it is a bit higher, 2 to 10% instead of 3%. So yeah, that's interesting. So he's going to have stronger attack buffs and stronger defense buffs. Now his talent Powerful Legacy now grants an additional 5 to 20% attack and defense buffs, which making okay. Alright, so overall all you need to know is that his attack and defense buffs are a lot stronger, and Ian's core ability is 50% stronger. Yeah, so his core ability is going to be 50% stronger, and basically his attack buffs and defense buffs have seen a little buff. Now on to Hercules. His power level, health and defense have increased slightly, and focus decreased slightly. That was interesting. He had pretty high focus from what I could remember, and yeah, this update is going to be pretty huge. We're probably going to have to update the max stats, which is going to be annoying. Someone's probably going to have to make a new account for that. But anyways, so his core ability, attack buffs and focus buffs will now stop being reapplied after refreshing when they reach 10 out of 10 stacks. Alright, so there's no text that will be listed in game to indicate this change. Yeah, that makes sense. So essentially, when Hercules is at 10 out of 10 buffs, he won't have if you hit him again, or if you hit an enemy, those basically the buff counter won't start again. So you'll have to drop to 9 for you to apply the 10th one again. It is a huge change, but it could work out in your favor when you're actually against Hercules, so you could gain those buffs a lot easier. For Maui, that is. On to Maleficent. So her power level and attack have been slightly increased. Now she's immune to burn, And her heavy attacks now inflict a -5 defense debuff for 10 seconds, which have a max stack of 2. And the talent Vengeful Cruelty and talent Vengeful Spite now add an additional 1 second to the burn duration from her Maleficent special. So far, this isn't anything amazing. It is a slight increase in attack, but again, it's only slight. The immune to burn is going to be nice when you're versing Angers and Minis, and that -5% defense debuff times 2 for 10 seconds is pretty good. It does also increase damage, indirectly of course. So now Vengeful Wrath now triggers 75%, 50% and 25% HP. Previously it was only triggering at 25% HP, which means that it's a lot better, because usually you wouldn't really reach 25% unless you were in really big trouble, because usually when you're at 50% HP you'd heal yourself up, especially like with Mickey, with someone like Jack Skellington. You'd get again up to 75%, maybe even 100% if you're playing well. So this is a great change, but they've also nerfed the attack buff. So instead of it being 50%, it's going to be a less potent attack buff, but it's going to be more often, I guess. But if you were to gain all 3, it would be more potent than it previously was, which is nice. So her signature ability defense debuffs from critical hits now reduce an additional -0.75% to -15%, which is nice. Instead of making the -5 defense debuff from Maleficent's core ability 50% stronger, which was only -2.5% defense at max signature level. So again, that's another positive change. So it does look like, looking at it, so far, let's go over it. So Baloo, pretty positive. Baymax, again pretty positive. Genie, again pretty positive. Hades, I'd say yeah, positive. It was just a slight numbers increase. Now with Ian, I was really hoping that they'd implement a way to increase his healing somehow, maybe through a talent. But again, it is extra attack and defense, and that's what he's known for, so it is a slight positive. Now with Hercules, I'm not really sure. It does make it, I mean, you are going to be, so it does mean that you're going to need to constantly attack the enemy to keep those attack buffs up, but you would do that anyways. And it might be a positive when you're versing him, so you could instead of having the person constantly at 10 focus buffs, they'd have to drop down, so you can gain that buff for Maui to gain a defense buff, and so we can turn that into armor and whatnot. And Maleficent, again, another positive. So now let's move on to Maui. So Maui now has a 50% chance to gain a defense buff from his core ability with a heavy attack. Okay, so now that does make Maui slightly better, because he can gain defense debuffs from his heavy attacks, which mean that he doesn't really need to rely on enemies to gain buffs anymore. So he could be better in circumstances where there aren't a lot of buffs, which is going to be pretty good. Alright, so here's where that balances out. His armor has been reduced from 5% to 3%, which is a lot considering, because let's say you have 10 attack buffs, that's a 20% decrease. And the talent Mighty I don't know, I never know how to say that, I'm not going to even attempt it right now. Armor granted allies is reduced from 3% to 10% to 2% to 5%, so even that has been nerfed. And fighting with winged beast armor, that Maui gains is reduced from 5% to 10% to 1% and 5%. So yeah, overall I'd say that's a pretty negative change, in all honesty, and it looks like they've pretty much nerfed him. I wouldn't say to the ground. They have added a way where he could get more armor without being so reliant on enemy buffs, but again, it does seem like a bit of a nerf there. Alright, so now on to Minnie Mouse. I'm very excited for this one, because I have been... Okay, there's a lot to unpackage here, but I have been saving some melee Stardust just in case. I could have bought an Ariel, but I held back. Alright, so let's begin. So power level slightly increased. I do think that's relating to the number, which doesn't really mean anything. So her attack and defense also increased. Positive change. It doesn't say slightly, so that could be... Alright, so her health has been decreased slightly. That's interesting. But again, slightly. But her focus has been decreased, so that's probably a bit of a bigger change. But now onto her core ability. Minnie will now gain Heart's Fire charges. So that's, I believe that's new. It reminds me of Heart's Vein charges with Evil Queen, I believe. Maybe they're gonna have some sort of synergy. We'll have to see in the future. But equal to the number of buffs an enemy. Alright, so let's say an enemy has 5 buffs, you'd gain 5 Heart's Vein charges when she hits them. So I wonder if they need to be on separate enemies, or let's say if a 5 buff enemy you hit twice, would that reach the max stack? And again, does it reapply like Hercules, or is it the new change? Alright, so the next core ability change, attack buffs now trigger with a 20% chance on basic attacks and a 100% chance on heavy attacks. So again, you're going to be using a lot more heavy attacks because it's just more reliable. 5 times as much reliability, and it doesn't really say a time frame, so it might be until the end of the encounter, but again, we'll have to test that. Maybe I'm already forgetting, it might already mention it in the current text. Now, another core ability change, attack buffs will remain for the rest of the combat and are removed when entering the next combat. So if you didn't know, the rest of the combat is basically the room. And let's say you have a 3-room battle. Whenever you enter a new room, that's basically when you're entering a next combat. So looks like you're gonna need to get to 10 attack buffs, and then it'll be reset. So it's not the end of the world, but when you're in, like, for example, dungeon bosses where there's only one room, it doesn't really matter. Alright, so attack buffs will remain for the rest of the combat, and I already read that, sorry. Now, the first special ability change, the damage is increased, basically doubled, which is nice. The damage burn is reduced, which isn't very nice, but I guess they probably balanced that. And the duration for the burn has also been increased, so the burn has been nerfed both in damage and duration, and essentially the actual special ability itself does double the amount of damage. Alright, now, so her signature ability now applies a minus 15% to 20% attack debuff that lasts 9 seconds, in addition to the previous stun effect. I'm glad they haven't removed that stun, but that attack debuff is going to be interesting. So basically the enemies will do less damage. Yeah, that is interesting. That seemed like something a tank would have, so maybe she's an off tank now. Now, her talent Soul's Tenacity changed from granting health to focus. That is interesting. So, alright, so now instead of being so tanky, she's now focused on damage because her Heart's Courage is also changed from defense to attack, which is going to be helpful because she does need a lot more attack. So I'm not sure about the focus. I probably would have preferred the health, but I probably wouldn't have used that either anyways. But I might start using that Heart's Courage talent just to get her attack up. So her talent Undaunted, or it looks like all her talents changed, yeah, but her talent Undaunted strikes, critical damage buff potency reduced from 10%. Alright, so that has been decreased a lot. So her alright, but critical damage buffs are now granted for each Heart's Fire charge or attack buff. So it does seem like it's going to be more often, so it makes sense why they reduced it, because 10-20% buffs would be pretty strong, and they probably didn't want to make her overpowered. And now her talent Strong Spirit now grants an additional 2-5% attack instead of making the 20% attack buff from Minnie's core ability 20% stronger. Let me just read that again. So she now grants an additional 2-5% attack instead of making the 20 attack. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that is another positive. I mean, it is a slight positive. It's only a 1% increase at max level, of course. Okay, so yeah. So it does look like a slight increase, but it is again only a slight increase. Her talent Passion Fire now increases the duration of the new 20% burn by 0.5 seconds to 4 seconds. Right, so instead of making the 33% burn from mini special 20% stronger, which was 6.6% damage. Alright, so her burn is more stronger with that talent. So if you want to get those stronger burns, you're going to need to use that talent. And in case there's a game mode where burns do more damage than they usually would, you may need this talent. So talent Fearless Focus. Focus buffs now last 6 seconds instead of the duration of the special ability. Focus buffs are now granted for each Heart's Fire charge or attack buff. Again, This is all right. So she she seems like she's might be very good with Scrooge because she's all about focus and attack. So maybe if you probably put together hero Scrooge, basically the range lineup with Minnie, you could see good results. But again, I'm not really sure with melees and focus. Is it really essential? But again, we need to test it just to be sure. Okay, so we got a one line of Mr. Incredible. So talent showtime attack buffs no longer last for the entire encounter, and now have the duration of 5 seconds. Okay, so this is actually a pretty big debuff, or not a debuff, a pretty big nerf, because now you're gonna have to reapply all those attack buffs again and again and again. But in fairness, you are throwing those heavies a lot when you're using Mr. Incredible. So it's not the end of the world. It's not nerfing him to the ground, but it does make him a lot more finicky. So yeah, that is a little bit of a bummer. But now we're on to, let's see how much we have left. Okay, so we've got 3 left, and Scrooge is another huge one. Alright, looks like they've removed a lot as well. So removed whenever Scrooge gets a critical hit from his heavy attack, he creates 1 coin. They're removed at the start of the encounter. No, that was pretty good. They must have changed something, but I used to always love that 3 coin bonus. It used to help me time my wait to time my special until I enter the new combat just to gain those extra coins. And releasing a heavy attack now, okay, so releasing a heavy attack now creates 1 coin. That is pretty consistent. So now if alright, so that is pretty huge actually. So now Scrooge can reliably get to 10 coins unless they change the maximum very easily just by throwing 10 heavy attacks. Hopefully the AI does comply with that. It would suck if you would have to switch to Scrooge to get those coins and then switch back to your range. But this is a pretty big change. Hitting a target with heavy attack now creates 1 coin. Okay, so does that mean if you release a heavy attack and then hit an enemy, is that 2 coins? Because then that does definitely make up for removing the 3 coins at the start of each combat. And heavy attacks now only hit 1 target but inflict knockback instead of pushback. Alright, so knockback. Oh, wait, knockback. Does that mean he can counter specials? That's going to be very interesting. Because if he can, that might make him pretty good. That's actually surprised me. So heavy attacks now only hit 1 target and also inflicts knockback instead of pushback. There might be a limit, but that does sound really good. So heal is increased from 2% to 10% HP. Amazing. So heal for each coin spent is decreased. Okay, so that's where it's come from. So previously you'd get from 10 coins you'd get 10% HP. Now you're gonna get 2.5, but I guess they do make up for it. Alright, so it looks like they haven't really nerfed the healing. It looks like they've just changed the healing to make it less dependent on the coins. So you're still getting the great healing, or the better healing, sorry, at any time, even if you're at 1%. Right, so overall that is a bit of a positive change, but it would have been nice if they added that 2 to 10% and still left the 1%, but it is where it is. Now his signature ability, when reaching 10 coins, instead of Scrooge gaining an attack buff, all allies now gain the attack buff. This is an amazing change. 10 out of 10. It basically just means that instead of Scrooge increasing his damage, your allies like your Gastons, your Buzz if you're using a ranged, or even Mr. Incredible if you're using Mr. Incredible for whatever reason, they'll do more damage, and they're really who you want the attack buff to be on. So now signature ability. Max stacks for attack buffs is now reduced from 10 to 5. Not really a big issue. It's Scrooge at the end of the day. He's the person that you want to empower your other allies, not really the one that wants to do all the damage. So I'm completely happy with that. The talent spending power removed the increase in the focus buffs created by coins by an additional 3 to 10%. Added whenever Scrooge reaches 10 coins, all allies gain. Okay, alright. So again, this looks like another pretty good change, because whenever Scrooge reaches 10% coins, all the allies will gain more critical damage. Oh well, it's a critical damage buff that's gonna last 10 seconds. Alright, so he does seem like he's got a pretty good rework here. I can't wait to test him out with Gaston and maybe Hero. Maybe he's been changed as well. Actually not, because it's Stitch and Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell does need a big change. Hopefully that's good, but let's finish with Scrooge first. So his talent, healthy profit, healing effect from each healing effect of each coin spent on Scrooge's ability has been increased from 50% to 100% stronger, to 50% to 200% stronger. So basically his base heal is stronger, and only the heal effect from the coins is enhanced. Alright, that's so. He did need a way to increase his health. I mean healing, sorry. That is a decent talent, but I probably won't be using it. I'm definitely going to be using spending power. That does sound like a great talent. And now let's move on to his next talent, hard bargain. Added whenever any enemy gains an attack buff, all allies gain a 5 to 15% attack buff for 5 seconds. Alright, so that's interesting. So if you're versing an aerial, wait a second. So whenever an enemy gains an attack buff, all allies gain a 5 to 15% attack buffs. Removed whenever the enemy is defeated. Scrooge has a 25. Okay, so I'm definitely going to be using that talent as well, because it is very often where your enemies are using or are gaining attack buffs, especially your melee goons, aerial for example, angers, minis, basically all the melees. So whenever they get an attack buff, you will also get an attack buff. And that's not Scrooge, that's your allies, which is insane. So talent fortune's favor, added whenever Scrooge reaches 10 coins, all allies gain a 10% critical chance buff for 10 seconds. So it looks like I'm going to be using hard bargain, fortune favor, and healthy profit. That could change, so watch out for me. I'm definitely going to be doing a video on Scrooge. Alright, so added the focus buffs granted by Scrooge's special ability and are increased by an additional 5 to 10% focus. Removed whenever Scrooge crits coin. Alright, so yeah. So it seems overall Scrooge isn't very RNG dependent anymore. So he can gain coins a lot more reliably, and he's got a lot more benefits than just the critical damage and critical chance he used to get from the focus. He's got attack buffs. He does seem like a very, very good support guardian now. He should definitely see an increase in the tier list. I will definitely be pushing for that. So AI Scrooge will do the... Oh, they've also changed Scrooge's AI, which is very good. So if AI Scrooge has 10 coins, the likelihood... Oh, this is perfect. To use his special has increased. If AI Scrooge has any other allies is 40% HP, the likelihood to use his special ability is increased. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm not really going to go on auto, so this doesn't really apply, but it is helpful. So if AI Scrooge uses his special, the likelihood of using basic attacks is increased. Yeah, that is nice. No, but is it nice? Because you want to get those heavy attacks to gain those coins. Yeah, but it is AI. You're probably only going to use the AI when... Oh, wait, no. Okay, no, that is actually going to apply when you're not on auto. Yeah, that's interesting. No, but it does say if AI Scrooge uses special, so yeah, it doesn't really think... I don't really think that's going to apply to any non-auto players. And AI Scrooge was adjusted to slightly decrease the time between basic attacks. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but we'll see. We'll see in due course. So now on to Stitch, one of the two, and then we've got Guardian Balance attribute adjustments. Right, that's going to be interesting. So now another big paragraph. I've done a lot of reading. I'm sorry if this is pretty long, but we got someone's got to do it. So now Stitch, his focus has increased, power level slightly increased, and attack reduced slightly. Yeah, his attack was pretty high, but hopefully... Alright, another big problem with Stitch was that his kit didn't really work well together, and hopefully this changes that, because Stitch is because he is a great character, but he just needs a bit of love. So now his core ability, metallic mode, Stitch now gains a 25% defense buff in addition to being immune to wounding steel. So yeah, he's more tanky. Core ability, metallic mode, heal block is inflicted on Stitch, and immunity root has been removed. Okay, so he's now no longer immune to root, which I would say was a pretty good utility to have, especially when you're against the Frank Wolves and Judy's, for example. Oh wait, so no, that means you can heal. Oh, so it is good and bad at the same time. So now you can heal while during in metallic mode, but you don't have that immunity to root. Alright, so added state callouts for each of Stitch's forms: Stitch, metallic, superheated, and molten. Yeah, that's just... probably a visual thing during the fight. And now Stitch's special ability. Stitch keeps his defense buff, from metallic if he switches into superheated from metallic. So yeah, that is a great change. Alright, okay, so his cooldown has also increased to 18 seconds. I think that's the longest cooldown in the game, which is going to be interesting. He does have that talent that reduces cooldown. Maybe they've increased that. But it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. I mean, it shouldn't be that much of it. No, but that is going to be a big issue, especially when you're against enemies like Maleficent, where you need to knock down those specials. 18 seconds is an insane amount of time. You can probably get 2 Rapunzel specials in that time, and other characters. I can't remember. I think Oogie as well. So you might have to use Oogie, which like tanks or support guardians that have a short cooldown to counter this. But let's move on to his next talent. So talent Combustion removes the condition that Stitch must be in his regular form for extra damage. That is great because usually you're never going to be in his regular form again. Yeah, well, ideally you don't want to, and this means that you can gain that extra damage and actually use this talent to gain that extra damage without having to lose other things. And it now triggers whenever Stitch uses his special ability. Yeah, amazing change. That's what it should have been initially, and I'm super glad they made that change. So his talent Tempered Metal removed the condition that Stitch must be in metallic form too. Alright, so this basically is the same thing with the armor. So yeah, so Combustion, Tempered Metal are now both actual usable talents instead of being pretty poor talents that didn't really affect you, and it only helped you once in a fight, which is very, very low. Now the talent Metal Quills, while metallic, if Stitch is hit by a tank or melee, he now has a 70% chance to deal 100% damage to their enemies. Okay, so is that like Mickey's mirror buff? Is that like Snow White's thorn buff? Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder how that works. Or does it basically give you on your next hit, for example? Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And defense buffs while metallic is increased. Alright, so yeah, that is great. So while you are metallic, while you're non-metallic, you won't lose the defense buffs. But while you are metallic, the benefit is that those defense buffs will be a lot more potent. And AI Stitch will now try to switch into metallic if he is wounded. Yeah, that is pretty huge. But again, you don't really want to be using AI. But it is a nice change to have. Now we're on to the final one. Let's just put it at the bottom. We'll look at the next few things later. Tinkerbell. Power level, health, attack, defense, and focus. Alright, I think that's everything, isn't it? Have been slightly increased, which was probably pretty needed. The chance to gain pixie dust has increased to 40 to 60%. A great change. The potency of the attack buffs have been increased from 8% to 10%. Another good change. The damage is increased from 100% to 300%. Another great change. The pixie dust is consumed at a rate 1 per second instead of 1. Wait, what? At a rate of 1. Okay, 1 per second instead of 1 per. Yeah, so her pixie form, or I think supernova, is gonna last about. If you use 10, then you're gonna have 10 seconds instead of 7.5, which is a 2.5 second increase, which is a lot in the grand scheme of things. And she also gains an attack buff per pixie dust granted instead of 1 total buff. Alright, yeah, that is another good change. So far pretty good. The attack size of the circular AoE from the special ability is now slightly increased. Again, a pretty decent change. The critical damage buff from is changed. Okay, so it's changed to a focus buff. Yeah, I prefer focus buff because instead of only a critical damage buff, it's critical damage and critical chance. And now she gains 1 focus buff per pixie dust instead of 1 total buff. Alright, so she looks like per pixie buff she'll have 10 focus buffs and 10 focus buffs and 10 attack buffs. So that does mean that she's going to be perfect for hero. And maybe even Scrooge, so maybe she could possibly be the best range to in that team setup, but I still think Gaston's the best range. So now talent heat resistant. The duration of focus buffs from talents are increased to 10 seconds to 20 seconds, and the max stacks is increased to 2 to 3. Alright, so yeah, her focus buffs, yeah, only great changes here. The max stacks are higher, they're longer. Pretty good. Her talent Blast Wave removed the 1% attack per. Alright, that's interesting. Okay, so yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. So but I wonder what it changed to. That is very interesting. Because obviously, if you completely remove the talent, it's got to be replaced. So essentially, before let's say you had 10 pixie dust and you used her special ability, that's how you turn into supernova. I believe, if I remember right, you would gain 10% attack. But they've completely removed that. But the 10% attack has been added to Tinkerbell's attack. So and did they do that with Sparked Eye too? Yes, they did. No, that's very interesting. So she's now got a lot more attack, it looks like. I think they just copied and pasted, didn't they? I'm pretty sure Sparked Eye does not do attack. But yeah, that does seem wrong. I'll have to look at that and probably message the devs, but we'll see. So now talent Burning Passion. Potency of burn reduced from 30% damage per second to 15% damage. Alright, so the burn has been a bit nerfed. But to be honest, damage over time effects, I much rather prefer all the attack buffs that she's now getting. Yeah, it does make sense that to balance out the increase of power in her base attributes. So her burn might be just as strong, just purely based on the fact that her attack numbers have been are a lot higher now. So AI Tinkerbell will sit mid-range between ranged and melee guardians. This is a great change considering that her special ability is actually a melee ranged or tank ranged special ability, which is great. Again, it's AI changes, so it will only affect players that play auto or aren't controlling her. AI Tinkerbell lowered. Alright, so she uses less heavy attacks during Supernova and lowered the use of dodge during Supernova. So she's just doing a lot more attacks, not worrying a lot more basic attacks it seems, and not worrying about dodging. And AI Tinkerbell was adjusted to slightly decrease the amount of time between basic attacks while Supernova. Alright, so so it looks like the AI is now maximizing as much basic attacks as it can get through, which is interesting. So now, alright, there's a lot more changes. Let's look at the Guardian balance adjustments. So with Aladdin, power level increased slightly, focus reduced slightly. Is this what we've already been told? Oh wait, I don't think so. But it might include information that we've already read about. So Aladdin, power level increased slightly, focus reduced slightly, doesn't really matter. Power level, health, defense and focus increased slightly. So anger did get a little bit of an attribute increase. So with Anna, power level increased slightly, focus decreased slightly. Again, I'm not sure how I feel with focus and melee guardians, but so it's not really a big deal. Ariel, the same thing as Anna, not a big deal. So Belle, she does have higher focus. I do think she had. I mean, they did remove the need for focus with her, so that's not really as big as a buff as it would have been before. But again, more focus, more stats, always a good thing. Captain Hook, another melee with focus decrease. I'm not sure why they're decreasing the focuses for melee guardians. They've probably noticed something. Maybe it's the change with the 7% I mentioned at the start of the video, but we'll just have to see. So Donald, power level increased slightly. It does look like they're increasing a lot of power levels. They probably want to balance out the numbers just to make everyone look more equal. So now let's look at Elsa, power level and focus increased slightly. Now that's actually a good change because Elsa really will be using a lot because she's a ranged, focus is very important, so great change. So with Eve, health and attack increased slightly, a decent change. Attack and health with any guardian, that's a great change. Goofy, just power level. With Judy, defense and focus decreased slightly. Also her power level is also decreased. Alright, that I think she's the first person to have a power level decrease slightly, unless that they didn't mean that, but they probably did. So power level and focus is increased slightly. Again, Merida, focus, you always want to need that focus when using a ranged guardian. And Mickey's power level reduced slightly, which was probably needed even even after the debuff that they did with her. And now Mulan, focus increased, power level and health and defense increased slightly. Yeah, all great changes there. Rapunzel, power level and attack increased slightly and focus increased. So all great changes again. Power level increased slightly, focus reduced slightly. Again, doesn't really matter with melee guardians in my opinion. And now Snow White, so just has a power level increase slightly, and now Woody focus reduced slightly, and power level and attack increased slightly. Obviously that attack is going to be nice. And now thank you for watching. It's very unlikely that many people have stuck to the end, but hopefully those timestamps have helped you. I did get this information early, and this is because of the Kabam Creator Program. Big shout out to everyone at Kabam, especially to Lyra, who wrote this entire thing down, which was amazingly presented. And I'm interested to see how it works out. There are some positives, there are some negatives, such as the Mr. Incredible changes, but Scrooge looks pretty good. I can't wait to see what they do. The tier list does look like it's going to be very, very different. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.